As the longest government shutdown in US history drags on, the future of food stamp delivery is anything but certain. Some 38 million Americans rely on the federal aid program, known officially as SNAP. To provide February's benefits, officials had to get creative and cleared payments to go out early by January 20th. But if the shutdown lingers into March, this critical assistance for low-income families may be in jeopardy. That's sparking worry across the country, including at this food bank in the nation's capital, where government figures show 1 in 6 residents depends on food stamps. Food banks are charitable organisations providing food for the most marginalised in society. But as the longest government shutdown in US history continues, these organisations are bracing for an influx of people who aren't getting paid and suddenly struggling to feed their families. Kim Cox, who runs the Father McKenna Food Bank, says her team is ready.
I feel pretty confident that we have sufficient supply to get us through this government shutdown. But I think that the stress that it's causing on these families is absolutely unconscionable and unnecessary.
Last Saturday, the capital's largest food bank set up aid stalls for federal government workers who haven't had a paycheck since the end of December. It can be a humbling experience for those caught up in the shutdown.
I think a lot of people's pride gets in their way of not going to the food banks. I think that's one of the problems. And then they don't know the programs that are out there. It goes back to that pride. Some people don't want to take that assistance because they've worked so hard to get off food stamps, they don't want to revert back to it.
Lester Munson is a political analyst and says that those forced to seek charitable aid are simply pawns caught up in Washington's political game.
This is really about power politics at this point. It's really over a couple $2 billion, which is a drop in the bucket in the U.S. federal budget. So it's really not about the money, and it's not so much about the policy. The longer this goes on, the more issues we're going to see where people's lives are impacted by the federal government failing them.
With negotiations to end the shutdown deadlocked, hope remains that the sight of bread lines on the capital's streets might help tip the balance and motivate lawmakers to get government working once more. Alistair Baverstock, CGTN, Washington.